he didn't check with me before he left.
We had the other two on last night. Me and Marlene.
Okay, at 6 o'clock, if you'd all please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, please turn off any cell phones, and for the council, please turn on your microphones. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Councilor Baker.
Here.
Councilor Sherman.
Here.
Okay, you've all received a copy of the minutes of the regular meeting, February 12, 2018. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, they'll stand approved as submitted. Visitors and delegation. Citizens are invited to speak to the council on items that are not on the agenda. There's a 3-minute limit time per person unless otherwise noted by the mayor. Please note that no formal action will be taken on these items during the time due to the open meeting law provision. However, they may be placed on a future posted agenda if action is required. We have first up Executive Director Laura McConnell for East Morgan County Library. Sorry.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come in and share. Okay. While she's pulling that up, I just wanted to share with you our annual report from last year and just give you an idea of what goes on at the library here in town. Thank you. So you'll see on there it says Libraries Transform. That's a campaign from the American Library Association, and it's just to highlight how our libraries transform our communities. So there's a quote from them. Libraries are a smart investment, transforming lives and communities and passionately advocating for lifelong learning. And there's a lot of these because statements they have. So we have libraries because transformation is essential to the communities we serve. So just in case you don't know, we're a district. Our funds come from property taxes, and our district is approximately the eastern half of Morgan County. So that grayed out area in the map is our district. Our population is approximately 8,200 people, but we serve anybody that comes in. We have quite a few people who have library cards who aren't even in our district, and we even have some from out of state who utilize our library cards to download ebooks and online resources. And in 2017, for every taxpayer dollar we received, we provided over $3 in services. And then here's just a few of the statements. One of them on this slide, because learning can happen anytime, anywhere, and that happens in our library often. Generally, the librarians are the ones that do the most learning, but we try to pass that on to others. So in 2017, we had over 40 different partnerships with school, government, civic, and community groups. And I wanted to especially thank the City of Brush for all the partnerships we have with the city. Between the community meals, Dale Colrick's crew helped us offload our new book drop. They'll bring over a forklift if we need it. And we had some bat houses put in the trees, and they brought over the bucket truck and the police force. The police officers have been really wonderful, and we sometimes have issues with teens, especially just fights that might come over from the school, or just giving me guidance on safety issues. And that's I always know I can call the city, and I really appreciate that. Some of our partnerships are off-site. Most of our partnerships we partner with programs. Some of them we take our resources off the library grounds to other sites. And here's just a few more quotes or statements. So this one on the right, because more than a quarter of U.S. households don't have a computer with an internet connection. So a lot of residents in Brush, many outside of Brush, have either really slow service or no service at all. So we provide a lot of internet access for them. We provide space for the people that come through. Sometimes we have travelers coming through in the summer. They may have a picnic in the park. They may use our Wi-Fi. We've met a lot of interesting people traveling through. We have different groups throughout the day and throughout the week that will just come in, spend some time in the library, play board games, We provide some crafts. We have many, many students that come in after school. In our proximity to the middle school, we have a lot of teens and kids. We provide a lot of programs for them. One thing we added this last year was the after-school lounge. Our teen librarian came to me and said, I'd like to provide a place a couple days a week where the teens can just have a room where I can help them with homework, we can set up computers. And so last year we tried it, and there were about 8 that would come through, and she says, I don't know if it's working. And I said, let's try it one more school year. So she started again this year, and she has had 30 kids in and out almost every day. Sometimes there's usually about 15 at a time, but 30 different kids to 50 different kids come through that room. And she provides an ear, she provides homework help. Sometimes I'll walk through and they'll be sitting around in bean bags and enjoying each other. We also have school groups that come over from different areas, converge, as well as Thompson brings over classes regularly. We have families that come in to play and learn. We also have meeting rooms that a lot of different groups utilize. And we just have people connecting with people. It's really fun to see different generations connecting and to hear maybe some grandmas giving young mamas a little encouragement to say, I've been there, you know. And we also try to provide information for people coming through. If we can't provide the resources we need, we try to make sure we can find the resource and send them in the right direction. And then the one in this slide that I like is because today's gamers could be tomorrow's inventors. Sometimes we feel like, do these kids just come in and play on the computers? Well, sometimes it could be a benefit to them. So our technology, our Wi-Fi was accessed over 22,000 times last year. We have free Wi-Fi in the building and in the park. It's on 24 hours. And the Wi-Fi was, the number of times it was accessed increased 19% last year. So it's getting used more and more. Our computers that we have in-house were used almost 11,000 times. We added what we call the lab. It has a computer with video making capability. A couple of students have used it for high school projects where they've made a video and looked like they were flying through the air with a cape. They just did some cool things that are way beyond me. And Trevor, who oversees that, also provides some coding lessons. And it's right now on a schedule basis because we just don't have the staff to man it all the time. And just some other things we offered to our community. We had 669 programs in 2017, and that was a 72% increase in our programs. And that was for all ages. A majority of them are for children, just because that's what we have those are the groups that we have come in the most. But we did increase our adult programming quite a bit. We had, so those programs were just library-sponsored programs. So things like the People's Market, the Community Dinner, the Lions Club Breakfast, those aren't counted in that number. Some of our programs are entertainment. We had musicians, we had authors, we had special authors, bigger named authors, we had local authors. Sometimes we have crafts where they'll make a craft and take it with them. Of course, we have literacy. That's what we're all about. We have story time and we have adult book discussions. And then, so the picture in the top picture there is W. Bruce Cameron, who wrote A Dog's Purpose, and it was made into a movie. He was the big author we had for the year, and we partnered with the middle school, and he went over there earlier in the day. And so that's a picture of the book and movie club from the middle school and the library. And in 2017, nearly 72,000 people entered our building. And all of our events and programs, we had almost 21,000 people attend, and 107,781 items were checked out. Not just books, we have lots of other items besides books. And these pictures, the top 2 pictures are from the Eclipse. We had about 100 people there with the Eclipse classes, and we all enjoyed the Eclipse together. I know a few of you were there, and it was a fun day. And the bottom 2 pictures are from the People's Market. We love that partnership with the Chamber and the city, and we like having life at our library. Some additions for the coming year. We received a grant from the Colorado Historical Records Advisory Board for digitizing the newspapers. When the Brush News Tribune moved to their smaller office here in Brush, they had a lot of bound copies of newspapers that they donated to us, and a lot of them have survived flood and fire and are falling apart. So we're getting those digitized, and we're in the process of getting that started. We actually had a lady from Japan call looking for some genealogy, and she was able to find information she needed just by getting online, so that was kind of fun. The middle picture, we started collecting oral histories, and so that's from a video that was our first video with Jim Odell about livestock auctions. And we're hoping to interview a lady in the next month about her experiences in the Dust Bowl. So we're compiling a list of people we'd like to interview and collect those histories while we have them here to share those with us. Our newest grant is from the Buell Foundation and the Colorado State Library, and it's for what they call FFN, Family, Friends, and Neighbors. As we all know, the child care situation can be tough here in our area, and a lot of the licensed daycare providers have resources, but those children who are watched by family members or neighbors or friends, those providers do not always have resources. So this grant is specifically for those people, the families, friends, and neighbors. So we might provide little kits to send home with them. With this grant, we can also provide transportation so they can come to our story time. So we're in the very beginning stages. We've sent out a survey just to see what the needs are, and then we're hoping to expand that. And that's what I have for you. Are there any questions?
Who are the board members now?
Oh boy. So Larry Coughlin is our president. Gail Lindell is our vice president. Carolyn Thornsby is the secretary. Carla Kruger is our treasurer. Then we also have Greg Krob, Sandy Sumner, and Lenore Wind.
Very good. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
You do a lot for the community.
Thank you. It's fun.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay, at this time, we will open it up for the audience. If there's anybody that has anything you'd like to bring before council, this is the time. We'd ask that you please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Eric Brandt, and I'm still living inside my body, thankfully. Surprise, motherfuckers! Bet you are sorry to hear from me again. That was 2 minutes of silence. That's what you get when you silence people's voice. You owe some people some time. So I appreciated the presentation from the library tonight. That's marvelous. I support my local library as well. It's very important to support your local library because it's a place where we lower our voices and raise our minds. But that's not the only place, as she said, that one necessarily needs to raise their mind and lower their voice. With your permission to approach, I have a courtesy copy of a federal district lawsuit that was filed today in the matter of Eric Brandt versus Charles Schoenberger, or Schittenturter as I refer to him, Rick Bain, Marlene Baker, Heath Becker, Kimberly Dykes, Vicki Quinlan, Monty Torres, Robert Chapin, Travis Anderson, Corey Hardy, Leroy Brown, Ross Blank, Jacob Chris, James Crone, Morgan County Sheriff's Office, a municipality, Morgan County, Colorado, a municipality, and of course, the city of Toilet Brush, Colorado, a municipality.
Okay,
And-
Mr. Brandt, your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, very well, sir. With permission to approach the DS, sir.
You may give it to our attorney at the end.
Fabulous. I prefer education over litigation.
Okay.
I would encourage you to educate before I have to finish the litigate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else out in the audience that has something to bring up to the council? Mr. Miller?
I would just like to commend our library and thank you for everything you do. I had an out-of-town person approach me. They'd visited our library and they thought, what a tremendous place. That's all I wanted to
Okay.
say.
Very good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, we will move on to our management. And at this time, we have the second and final reading of ordinance number 864-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of section 26, in the southeast quarter section of 27, the northeast quarter section of 34, and the northwest quarter section of 35, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, to the city of Brush, Colorado. Karen, would you like to, you're going to speak to that after?
I can do a quick summary for you real quick.
Why don't we go ahead and do that really quick?
This is the first of a series of 4 annexations that cumulatively would annex the English feedlot property. So you have 3 more of these to go here this evening in sequence. So hopefully this little introduction will cover all 4 of those ordinances. And due to the size of the parcel, it needs to be done in this series of smaller pieces. So this is the first of those 4 ordinances.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council, I would need a motion to approve or deny on the second reading ordinance number 864-18. And if you would, make the motion, please read the ordinance.
I move that we approve the second and final reading of ordinance number 864-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of section 26, the southeast quarter of section 27, the northeast quarter of section 34, and the northwest quarter of section 35, Township 4 North, Range 56 west to the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, English Annexation 1 to the city of Brush, Colorado.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Sherman.
Yes.
We have the second and final reading of ordinance 865-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of section 26, the southeast quarter section of 27, and the northeast quarter section of 34, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado. This is English Annexation 2 to the city of Brush. If council, if you'd like to make a motion either to approve or deny, and then read the ordinance, please.
I move that we approve the second and final reading of ordinance 865-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located at the southwest quarter of Section 26, the southeast quarter of Section 27, and the northeast quarter of Section 34, Township 4 North, Range 56, west to the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, English Annexation 2 to the City of Brush, Colorado.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. This is the second and final reading of ordinance number 866-18, and ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of Section 26, the southeast quarter section of 27, and the northeast quarter section of 34, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, English Annexation 3 to the City of Brush. We need a motion to approve or deny on second reading.
I move we approve the second and final reading of ordinance 866-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of Section 26, the southeast quarter of Section 27, and the northeast quarter of Section 34, Township 4 North, Range 56 west to the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, English Annexation 3 to the City of Brush, Colorado.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson.
Yes.
We have the second and final reading of ordinance 867-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of Section 26, southeast quarter of Section 27, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, English Annexation 4 to the City of Brush, Colorado. Need a motion to approve or deny the second reading.
I will move to approve it, but I lost my place. Hold on. Thank you. The fourth one, okay. I move to approve the second and final reading of ordinance number 867-18, an ordinance annexing certain unincorporated lands located in the southwest quarter of Section 26 and the southeast quarter of Section 27, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, English Annexation 4 to the City of Colorado, Brush, Colorado.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Next item is second and final reading of ordinance number 868-18, an ordinance establishing and determining zoning designation for lands recently annexed to the City of Brush located in the southwest quarter of Section 26, southeast quarter section of 27, northeast quarter section of 34, and the northwest quarter section of 35, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, known as the English Annexation. Need a motion to approve or deny on second reading?
I move to approve the second and final reading of ordinance number 868-18, an ordinance establishing and determining zone designation for lands recently annexed into the City of Brush located in the southwest quarter of Section 26, the southeast quarter of Section 27, the northeast quarter of Section 34, and the northwest quarter of Section 35, Township 4 North, Range 56 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, known as English Annexation.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Next is second and final reading of ordinance number 869-18, an ordinance establishing and determining zoning designation for lands recently annexed to the City of Brush known as the Brush Municipal Golf Course at Pettis Park. Need a motion to approve or deny on second reading ordinance number 869-18.
I move we approve the second and final reading of ordinance number 869-18, an ordinance establishing and determining zoning designation for lands recently annexed into the City of Brush known as Brush Municipal Golf Course at Pettis Park.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
No.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Next item is a public hearing for the adoption of the floodplain map. At this time, I'll open it to open the public hearing. We have a staff report from Karen.
The City of Rush first joined the National Flood Insurance Program in 1975. The federal government considers this program a partnership between the participating community, the state of Colorado, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Participation in this program requires communities to adopt and enforce minimum floodplain management regulations. And this is done so that development, including construction of buildings, is undertaken in a way that reduces exposure to flooding. Because of our participation in this program, property owners in Brush are eligible to purchase federal flood insurance for their buildings and its contents. Additionally, the transfer of real property is facilitated since flood insurance is often required by banks and other lenders. Not participating in this program would make it very challenging, if not near impossible, for a property purchaser to obtain a mortgage. Over the past couple of years, council may recall that you all have been in conversations with Morgan County commissioners and along with Morgan County commissioners and the state regarding discussing these impending changes to our floodplain maps for Morgan County and Brush. These changes are a result of a federal project to update the floodplain maps to a countywide digital format, also known as a DFIRM. And then part of the scope of the work related to this was to incorporate any changes or studies that might have occurred since the last time the maps were printed. And the date on the maps we've been using was 1981, so you had quite a window of time that they needed to look at. There was one substantial study that was done during that time period, and that was by CDOT, and that was when they did all of their engineering associated with the replacement of bridges along I-76. So the findings of that study were incorporated into that digital format as well. And so the result of all that work is a new effective study and associated maps that is known as Flood Insurance Study Number 08087 CV000A, Morgan County, Colorado, and incorporated areas, dated April 4th, 2018. This proposed study and the associated maps have completed the federal review process. And having cleared that process, the city, as part of our responsibilities for participating in this program, is required to update our ordinances to reflect this new flood study. And that change needs to be done and in place by the effective date of that study of April 4th, 2018. So, amending our regulations to reflect this new study is just the most recent in a series of updates the city has undertaken since adopting that program in '75. Attached to your memo was an annotated timeline of past updates related to those flood regulations, and then also included information regarding a variety of events and council discussions that have taken place over the past 2 years specific to this latest proposed study. Within the city ordinances, there are 3 references to the effective flood study that need to be revised to reflect this new study. That first occurs in the land use portion of the regulations, and the Planning Commission is the one who is charged with making recommendations to council with related to changes in that section of our regulations. On February 5th, they held a public hearing on the proposed amendment, and at the conclusion of that hearing, to revise specifically section 16-13-320, it's a text change that would take and strike out the date of the flood study from 1981 and insert this new flood study for 2018. At the conclusion of their hearing, they found it prudent to recommend to council that you make that change to those regulations. The other 2 references to the flood study occur in the building code section of the ordinances. And the updates and changes there are very similar to the land use code, where it is a text change to reflect the date of this new study. Those sections where this happens is 18-2-30, subsection 10, and that's a change to the International Building Code, where it makes reference to the establishment of flood hazard areas. And the second is section 18-3-30, subsection 8, and that's a change within the International Residential Code, table 301.2, parens 1, and that table contains climatic and geographic design criteria. So the date of this study would be inserted within that table. Failure of the city to adopt these changes to our text, to update our municipal code, will render Brush residents ineligible for flood insurance, make mortgages nearly impossible to obtain, make the city less eligible for grants, and make us ineligible for disaster assistance. In your packet was a copy of that ordinance. At your last meeting on February 12th, you approved on first reading that ordinance, and so it ran in full in the newspaper on February 14th. To date, I've not received any comments in my office related to that. Tonight, you have in front of you the need to conclude this hearing and hopefully approve on second reading that ordinance again, and this would get published this coming Wednesday. This process would finalize these text changes, thereby incorporating the reference to that study within our regulations. As a side note, I do want to take note that going forward, this is not the last and final word related to flood regulations in the city of Brush. Just as there is a history of reviewing and making changes as data and information becomes available, the city continues to look at ways that we can make the situation better for the community and our residents. Towards that end, there's a partnership that has developed between the city of Brush, Morgan County, and the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And in October, they had a kickoff meeting where they're looking at modeling for alternatives that could potentially minimize the flood risk here in the city of Brush along the Beaver Creek. Also in your packet, you had a flyer that highlighted that. And then on the table in front of you this evening is a couple of flyers with some additional information that hopefully our residents will find helpful as we go forward with this. So, questions?
Thank you for your report.
I was gonna ask you, practically speaking, most of this is gonna fall to you. Is that correct, Karen? The responsibility?
My office, yes.
Okay. And was there one change in structures from, was that included in this change?
Actually, hang on here. I believe it was the June 27th meeting when representatives from CWCB were here. It was either that or a subsequent meeting where they had a PowerPoint presentation and they highlighted the history of this project. And I believe it was, 4 or 5 structures that they identified that had not been previously mapped on the original study. And those were part of what were incorporated in this particular study.
Okay. Okay, so there were some changes to the map.
Yes, and that was also done through the CDOT study.
So people might want to refer to the map, the new map.
I think it's on
Is
the
what I-
county's website as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, at this time, we'll take any public comments.
Chuck Miller, 26060 Morgan County Road S. I guess you've heard from me before on this topic, and I guess it's my last chance. In what Karen presented to you, it says not participating in the program would make it very challenging, if not near impossible, for property purchaser to obtain a mortgage. For a property purchaser to obtain a mortgage. Sorry, I got my tang all tangled up. Then she goes on to say that the CDOT study was included. And CBCW reps and FEMA reps presented to you at this podium that the new interstate directly north of Brush was not included in that study. It needed to be included in the next study. So that is misinformation. And I expect each and every one of you council people to check that out before you vote. I pointed out that by not participating in this, she once again says, makes Brush residents ineligible for flood insurance. Well, that's FEMA flood insurance. That's not all flood insurance. She goes on to say, make mortgages nearly impossible to obtain, and will make the city less eligible for grants, and will make the city ineligible for disaster assistance. Now, is Karen saying this, or is FEMA saying this? Because it's a federal offense for a federal agency to hold funds from a municipality for recovery purposes. If they threaten you with that, it's a federal offense, and you have legal counsel that can assist you on that. Another reason to look into before you vote. She uses the term, the Planning and Zoning Commission found it prudent. Well, I'd like to hear the definition of prudent in that manner. Included in the council packet is an ordinance that when adopted will effect these required updates. Now in 2015, did you not approve the rules and regulations, the new rules and regulations of FEMA? Did you not approve that in 2015? Is there a response to that? It says that in your works that you have, that she supplied to you. Karen, would you like to help them in 2015 as to when they adopted that? The new rules and regs?
You're seeking affirmation of a fact that's already in place?
I don't understand your question.
Well, I don't understand your question.
Did you not adopt the new rules and regs that FEMA has in place in 2015?
The City of Brush updated their regulations as directed by CWCB at that time.
In 2015.
I believe that's the date, sir.
So what exactly are you voting on tonight? The new rules and regs or the mapping? Anybody have any response?
So most of what you have in there is the dates that you're putting into the new, you've got the older or these existing regulations. There's those, I believe it's 3 places that we have to change the dates to refer to the new study and the new effective date, I believe is what it's called. And that was highlighted in everyone's packets. So it's not putting all new regulations in place. It's really the same regulation. It's really just the administrative change of correcting the document.
And it's adopting the study, which includes the map. Correct? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so the way I understand you just said, you're adopting what has already been done, and you're adding to the maps, and you're adding the maps to what has already been done, and you're updating the date as of April 4th, 2018, instead of May, whatever it was, 2015. Is that correct? Is that what you just said?
No, we're adopting the study, Chuck.
You've already adopted the study
No,
at
we're doing that in
2015.
tonight's ordinance.
Has anything changed in there from when you adopted in 2015 to tonight?
Sure, the study is new.
Has anything changed from when you adopted in 2015 to tonight?
The map has changed, is my understanding. Do you want to speak to that, Karen?
You have in front of you this evening an ordinance that would affect 3 text changes. And those sections are, and the first one is section 16-13-320. And that section of the regulations reads, basis for establishing the special flood hazard area. The special flood hazard area is identified by the Federal Emergency Management Agency in a scientific and engineering report entitled, this is the language to be struck, and that is, the Flood Insurance Study for the City of Rush dated October 13th, 1981. That sentence gets removed. And in its place, the language that gets inserted is Flood Insurance Study number 08087 CV000A, Morgan County, Colorado, and incorporated areas dated April 4th, 2018. The rest of that paragraph that is unchanged reads, with accompanying flood insurance rate maps and/or flood boundary/floodway maps, FIRM and/or FBFM, and any revisions thereto are hereby adopted by reference and declared to be a part of this article. These special flood hazard areas identified by the FIS and attendant mapping are the minimum area of applicability of this article and may be supplemented by studies designated and approved by City Council. The floodplain administrator shall keep a copy of the flood insurance study, DFIRMs, FIRMs, and/or BFFMs on file and available for public inspection. The second code section where the date gets revised is section 18-2-30, amendments related to the building code. And the third section where the date is to be revised is section 18-3-30, amendments to the residential code. Those are the three areas where you have a text change that would reflect this new flood study date.
Thank you, and I think everybody understands that to this point, that you're not re-adopting the study, you're amending the study, correct? For the new dates.
We're adopting the new study with that number.
You're amending the study you've already adopted with that number.
We're deleting the prior study of 1981, and we're adopting the new study that bears the number that Karen just read with an effective date of April 4, 2018.
Okay, well, we can continue to argue that, but I think everybody's point is well taken. A floodway is a channel of a river or other watercourse, and the adjacent land areas that must be reserved in order to pass the base flood discharge without increasing the flood depths. You can still develop, build, and rebuild structures in a floodway. Is that FEMA words or City of Brush words?
They're not in our ordinance.
Okay, so that's FEMA's words. That you can still develop, build, and rebuild structures in a floodway.
You asking me to answer that?
I'm asking somebody.
I don't know the author of that statement or definition.
Well, it's written here, so shouldn't we know?
It's written where? It's written on a piece of paper in front of you.
That I received through the city. That's presented tonight.
It's not in the ordinance that's presented today.
So it says you can still develop, build, and rebuild structures. That's not in the ordinance?
I don't believe it is, but maybe it is in one of the whereas paragraphs, Chuck.
I didn't hear that last part, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to look for it.
Chuck, I hate to cut you off, but we're gonna have to move on.
Well, let me finish up then, okay?
Go
If
ahead.
you're going to ask me to cut my presentation short. You City Council, who is represented by 4 council members out of what I believe 7, 2 of you taking a brand new seat. Is this your second or third meeting in a brand new seat? I don't know how knowledgeable you are. I would hope that you have reviewed all of the documents that you're asked to put in place tonight. I ask you, City Council, to understand the importance of this, and the decision you make tonight weighs heavily on our community. we have large, large impacts. And floodway means a no-build zone because it allows zero elevation change inflow, zero. Now, wherever you go out here from Ray Street over and you build any kind of structure or you do any road work or anything, you're required to do a FEMA permit. Get approval from FEMA. FEMA has put all of their requirements on your employee. Not mine. You've told me I don't reside in the town of Brush. Your employee, they put in all their important work on. So when she gets ready to deal with someone that wants to do something in Brush, she has to first go through all the FEMA stuff and then go through the City of Brush requirements. There is no funding to carry their program. Should be a major issue because of the amount of time that your employee needs to spend. So if you'll read through here, it says that you cannot build in a floodway. And that's the real problem with this whole new floodplain concept is the floodway. If you choose to pass this tonight, you choose to pass it. And yes, I will have to tell my grandchildren the consequences. If you choose to table it because you do not have a full council, I would admire that and do further study because I don't believe you've properly been led down this path. Thank you.
I have a question about what Chuck said about the floodway. My understanding, Chuck, is that any building will require an engineering study, but that doesn't preclude us from building.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate that exact question. How many people are going to come to Brush, Colorado and spend an ungodly amount of money to do the engineering and the other studies that are required to see if they can build? That's the problem we have. The amount of money that's required to do the studies, how many people will invest that money? And do you understand the requirements in the event we have something other than a flood that damages? We have a downburst. We can't call it a tornado in Colorado anymore. I think we have to call it a downburst. But if we had something come through like that and tear up a block, the rules and regulations state that if it's over 50% of the value, 50% of the value, you can't rebuild it. The value placed on it the day before the event happened. Now there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about this. She brought up that you're doing this in conjunction with Morgan County. Morgan County's not anywhere close. They presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commission 2 weeks ago voted to not pass it on to the commissioners for approval. Wanted to learn more before they could do that. They're having another presentation on March 1st. So it hasn't been even presented to the county. So I hope I've answered your question and I've went into a little further area and I apologize.
No, you were answering his question. Any other questions?
Well, I think, Chuck, and I didn't attend the last planning and zoning, and I'm not on planning and zoning anymore, so I'm not gonna speak for them. Who was here?
I was unable to, or I'd have been there. I was out of town on business.
But I think, the conventional wisdom here is that we go ahead and adopt it, and then try to get completely out from underneath the floodway and floodplain maps both, with mitigation. And that's, I believe, the path that we had chosen to take.
What does mitigation do for you?
It gets us out of the floodway.
Do you understand what mitigation is?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
Well, it's to take away the floodwaters so that they don't cause the flooding, which is causing our floodway designation that is gonna kill our Ward 3 that you're talking about. It means that we dam the water, we change bridges, or do whatever's necessary to get out from underneath that map.
Or does it mean that FEMA or CWCB found $250,000 to do that study? And they found that the only way we could get out of the floodway and the floodplain is for these events to happen, but unfortunately they're not feasible. So therefore, it concretes us in through that mitigation. Could that be a possibility?
Well, I don't know. You're way out in speculation land, Chuck.
No, I'm not out in speculation
Well, I think
land.
you
I'm
are.
out to factual land. I'm sorry. Let's ask our attorney what mitigation means.
I'm not gonna give you definitions of that tonight.
Because it doesn't mean what you're presenting. Look up mitigation. Mitigation is to be done prior to court. To prevent a lawsuit. That's what mitigation is. So you mitigating the floodplain and floodway rules and regulations and maps that you're adopting is a pretty large effort. Is it possible? Other questions?
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was uncomfortable tonight in my speech because of the company we're keeping. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from anyone else in regards to this issue? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Oh,
Approach, sir,
all right.
Bill Wilson, on behalf of the Brush School District. I guess part of where I am and where we are as a superintendent and board is just making sure that we have an understanding of what it is this actually does. Because we have that property at the middle school, right smack and rather significant in the floodway. And trying to make sure that as we make plans, the question that Mr. Miller raised is it clear in your minds so that we have clarity in our minds? Does it mean we can knock it down and rebuild, or if we knock it down, are we done? And if we don't have a definitive answer on that, that's a question that's, I would say, at least hundreds of thousands of dollars that impacts our community and our taxpayers who, in essence, own that property. So if we're not certain of that, or if we can't be certain of that, I would think a tabling might be in order. Or can we add that to our adoption of this particular policy or code that says we can? And then if it's in contradiction with what we thought, we didn't think it was in contradiction, but we find it in contradiction, then we obviously have a reason for mitigation without having given up already something and they said, well, you signed off on it, now you're out of luck. That's the way my mind works and approaches the project problem. And it might answer it for individual homeowners as well. I'm here to claim that I'm way more ignorant on this subject than I ought to be, and yet I just want to make sure that those words were spoken on behalf of the district. So.
Very good. Thank you.
The only other question I have as a taxpayer is, do we know other things that we are surrendering to FEMA in adopting this, or there's nothing else other than what we already do? We're just adopting the new study. That's it. Okay. All right. And help me. I've been away for a while. When was the last time the Brush experienced any significant damage or destruction from the flood from the Beaver?
1965.
1965?
That was the last time downtown had water in it. I'm not talking about some heavy cloudburst that caused some, local flooding around storm drains. No, that's not what we're talking about. Last major
The
flood
Beaver
was-
overflowed its bank.
Yeah, 65.
And when FEMA was here, the representative came in that night, some points were made about that we have a general prevalence of sunshine almost 365 days a year. He was a bully. He was an arm twister. And he pretty much said, not in so many words, that we would never see any more money from FEMA. And the other point that I want to make here is because Chuck brought up floodway. And that's a big deal. However, my understanding is it doesn't prevent or preclude building. What it does is, well, we can split hairs, Chuck, but it's going to require an engineering study. And if that's part of your decision in raising that building, then you might want to know what you're getting into.
Well, and again, I guess, I think it's tangent to this situation, but we're not interested in leaving an albatross or an eyesore as you enter Brush and being responsible for that as a school district. On the other hand, to knock down a building and devalue that property by however many hundreds of thousands of dollars because we had a misunderstanding over whether or not we could rebuild staff housing or a child care center or an academy of sorts or anything is a rather significant deal, and I think it's an important piece to our taxpayers to make sure we have that answer and that we don't think we have the answer. I'd be comfortable if it's definitely in writing and
We can't give you permission to rebuild, not knowing what your plans are to rebuild.
Right.
And we can't make a sweeping statement like you're asking us to make. I think the distinction is that when you rebuild, you cannot increase the,
footprint.
no, not the footprint. You can't increase the floodway level over what it would be as it now exists. So you have an existing structure there that's gonna have an impact on the floodway. The new structure can't increase the elevation of the water in that floodway. What that's gonna be, who knows? You have a footprint now of umpteen square feet. What are you gonna do in the future? If it's smaller, it may reduce the floodway elevation. That's where this engineering study comes in.
The other thing, Bill, is we discussed at lunch today was the CWCB and FEMA, for unique situations, we have the ability to call them up and say, let's meet at the school, get exact information from them, how it works as far as the footprint of the building versus the floodway, what you can do if you knocked it down versus what you can't do. So I think the best thing we could do is just like we do with the fire department building. We had questions, we didn't know the exact answers, so their team came out, met with us, and they explained what we could do with that situation. And so, same thing with the middle school. Before anything's done, for sure, get a team out and visit and understand exactly what the rules are gonna be for that particular building.
Yeah, we can't speak for FEMA. We can't.
Well, I
and-
understand
and
that. I guess
you can't get
my
anything-
question, not just for us, but for taxpayers, is do we know how costly the study is? And as we looked at, you consider Ward 3 or the affected area, whether it's a fire or whether it's just the fact that the building needs replaced, is it gonna be prohibitive for somebody to rebuild there? Do we have that answer? If not, then I would suggest it might be wise to add a piece to our codes that say we can. And then if FEMA says we can't, it's like, okay, hold it, where's local control? It's time to mitigate, let's figure this out. If we don't do something like that, then essentially we're signing off, is that not correct? They'll come back and say, well, wait, you agreed, you approved it back on April 4th, blah, 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 you're out of luck. That's my thought. Take it for what it is. You got your lawyer. He's a good man. So, thanks.
I do have to state that I disagree with your statement there, Bo. That is not the way I understand it.
Can I just comment on something that I read in this, where you were reading from? It says if a floodway has not been designated, these more stringent development standards must be applied to the entire floodplain.
So what that does is, it was a discussion we had at a previous council meetings, is if we don't include the floodway now, then our entire floodplain is treated as the floodway. So then the other 60% of the town or the community, they have to follow those rules. So it was more of a situation where, not the worst of two evils, but essentially you got, it could be worse. If we don't do anything, it could potentially be worse as well, so.
That's an or else clause.
Okay, folks. You know, we've gone up and down, and both Dana and I are relatively new and not as well versed as some of the other council people are. But that's not their fault or our fault. I would like to be sure that we're doing the right thing. We have two sides that are talking two different things. I'm hoping that city staff is very confident in what they are saying. And I feel uncomfortable having half the council not here as well, because I would appreciate, and I'm sure they would appreciate, having input into making this decision that will affect generations to come in Brush, Colorado. So we can do a couple of different things. We can approve it, we can deny it, or I'm assuming we can table it until everybody's here.
I'd like to table it until the other Ward 3 counselor is present, because the bulk of the floodway is in my ward.
One thing that I wanted to get clarification from Karen is the dates that we have. There's a set date that it has to be done by. And so this will, if there is a tabling, this will create a situation where we have to have an emergency meeting and potentially emergency clause.
That or it pushes it
Skip
past
this.
that deadline. Nobody's told me what happens if we don't make the deadline.
That's the April 4th deadline?
Yeah, this ordinance is being adopted tonight as a standard ordinance, no emergency clause. So after final publication on Wednesday, what's Wednesday, the 28th? There's a 30-day referendum period, during which the ordinance cannot take effect. So the effective date of the ordinance would be 30 days,
March 30th, I think.
March 30th, yeah. That's cutting it pretty close with an April 4th deadline, as we understand that to be. We could rewrite the ordinance to make it an emergency ordinance, and that's an ordinance that takes effect immediately upon final adoption and publication. So it would be on the Wednesday of final publication. The 30-day referendum period is eliminated. To do that, of course, you have to have a statement in the ordinance what justifies the adoption as an emergency measure.
And the votes.
Oh, and the votes change too, thank you. We need 3/4 of the entire city council to approve an emergency ordinance, and that would be 6 of 7 votes.
Okay, well, that muddied the waters just a little bit more.
Does it need to be adopted, or does it need to be in effect?
Needs to be adopted to be in effect.
My question is for compliance issues.
It's not, we haven't changed any of our code provisions without adoption of this ordinance. That would mean
It
the
says
old
the code
1981
provisions
study
have
would
changed.
still be effective in the community, and that would leave us with the consequences of not having updated the flood study.
You've adopted the ordinance, or you've adopted the ordinance, the FEMA rules and regulations into your ordinance in 2015. All you're doing is amending the April 4th deadline.
We're adopting the new study. It's more than changing the date. It's a new study entirely. it's the one that, under FEMA's procedures now, identifies a floodway within the community in addition to the floodplain. And it requires an ordinance by the city council to amend an ordinance. And that's what we're doing in this particular ordinance. We're
I
amending
just didn't know
three
if you could
provisions
use
of the
their-
city code. What?
I just didn't know if you could use their words against them. Does it say the ordinance has to be adopted, or does it have to be into effect? If you
Well,
voted
it
to
can't be in effect without adoption of the ordinance.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just simply saying if it's adopted, but it hasn't passed the 30-day referendum to be in effect, do we still meet the expectation?
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Sometimes you can use the bureaucracy to our benefit. I don't know if this is.
I don't have that answer. I'd have to go do some research and talk to Karen about it. But the standard procedure, though, for an ordinance is, without an emergency clause, 30-day referendum period, and it's not effective until the expiration of that amendment period.
So Monty, what did FEMA state when they stood up here at this podium and said you're already in violation because you have adopted this already?
Can't remember what they said that day.
Well, they gave a presentation and said you're already in violation.
If you've got a point, Chuck, make it. You're asking a question.
My point is that you've already adopted the ordinance.
We haven't.
In 2015, you adopted,
We adopted regulations. This ordinance adopts a new study, and those are two different things.
so why are we in violation? Why is Morgan County in violation?
I don't know what he's talking about. I can't help with that.
I don't know the answer to that either.
Exactly, we don't know everything we should know.
Chuck,
I'm sorry.
he was using some arm twisting to try to make the case that we had been in violation of some floodplain regulations. I don't know that we were. He made general statements, and I'm not so sure that they applied, but that is what he said. And he was talking about already existing floodplain regulations the night that he gave his presentation.
Existing, that's correct. Because you adopted the floodplain regulations.
Okay, folks, we have to bring this to a close. I'm gonna close the public hearing at this time. Okay. We have a second final reading of ordinance number 870-18, an ordinance amending various provisions of the Brush Municipal Code to incorporate the new flood insurance study for Morgan County, Colorado, and in incorporated areas, date April 4th, 2018. And I need a motion to approve, deny, or table the adoption of this ordinance.
I move that we table this ordinance. Yeah,
870-18.
yeah, 870-18.
So we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any discussion?
Well, I think it's really important that he be here.
Well, we really need a full table.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
One item is just, we're probably gonna have to have an emergency meeting
Mhm.
here relatively quickly, so on the staff's end, if it does pass this tabling, we'll be reaching out pretty quickly to everyone to get might not be on a Monday night, it might be a different night, lunch meeting or something like that to make it work for everyone.
And that's gonna require an emergency?
I just think that, or,
Yeah, well, we require an emergency unless we adopt it
So,
within the next 2 or 3 days, because we have that
Right, right.
leeway between
Right,
March
so-
30th and April 4th.
so we're gonna need,
Staff will sort that out for you all.
we're gonna need to show up.
Right.
With an emergency clause, as I mentioned, it takes 6 of 7 affirmative
Right.
votes to approve that ordinance.
Just to make everyone aware too, because of the timing that we have with the Brush News Tribune, the second reading will be in this Wednesday's paper, but you'll just need to disregard that because obviously everybody's here and knows it didn't pass, just so everybody knows.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman.
Yes.
Okay, going on to second and final reading of ordinance number 871-18, an ordinance approving the lease of certain real property owned by the city of Brush for a term of 6 years. Andrew?
Okay, this ordinance for second reading, there is one amendment from the first reading, and that would be for a term of 6 years. The original reading was a term of 5 years, and this is the lease with Don Leonard for the property that the city owns, and he does the farm lease on them. So we're just asking for the title to be changed to the term of 6 years, which it is, and
The third whereas paragraph needs to be changed to.
okay.
And just for council's benefit.
And also section 1.
For council's benefit, this is the farm out, the wastewater plant. This is a biosolids disposal site. They land applied that at agronomic rates, and that's how we get rid of that material.
Okay, do we have a motion?
No.
Okay. Need a motion to approve or
No,
deny?
you need a motion to amend first.
Okay, we have a motion to amend from 5 years to 6 years, and as the other areas attorney talked about.
I would say to amend the ordinance to state 6 years where it says 5 years now.
Okay. To amend the ordinance where it says 5 years, it was changed to 6 years.
I'll move what we, approve the second and final reading.
No, you're ahead
We're
of
gonna
yourself.
amend the ordinance to read 6 years instead of 5 years.
That's the first motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, now we need a motion to approve or deny on second reading ordinance number 871-18, an ordinance approving the lease of certain real estate owned by the city of Brush for a term of 6 years and published by title only,
As amended.
as amended.
I'll move that we approve the second.
Wait, let me correct something on that. With the amendment, we need to republish those parts of the ordinance that were amended. So it wouldn't be by title only.
Okay, to republish the areas that were amended.
Now you can make your motion.
I'm scared.
You're doing fine.
I don't blame you.
Very good.
You're the only one willing to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So just hit it.
I move that we approve the second and final reading of ordinance 871-18 as amended, approving the lease of the certain real estate owned by the city of Brush for a term of 6 years instead of 5.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi?
Yes. Resolution number 2018-7, naming signatory authority for bank accounts for the city of Brush. Joanne?
Yes, this evening I would like to present to council the resolution number 2018-7, a resolution naming signatory authority for bank accounts for the city of Brush. I did not realize at the time I did my original signatories for Farmer State Bank, they have changed things a little bit when it comes to credit cards, and I needed to do this for the credit card as well. We need to be getting a Visa credit card for the mayor, and since Mayor Schoenberger is no longer with us and we have Mayor Bain now, we need to have this resolution adopted so I can present it to the bank to get a credit card for Mayor Bain.
Okay, do we have a motion for resolution number 2018-7?
I move that we approve resolution number 2018-7, naming signatory authority for bank accounts for the city of Brush.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Next area is agreement between the City of Brush and Premier Earthworks and Infrastructure Incorporated for the English Water Line Project.
Okay, this agreement is a water line that extends from approximately the Wendy's area up to the old feedlot or the Brush Agri Park. And it's a partnership with Department of Local Affairs, the READY grant. And they're gonna be close to paying 50% of it. So I think we're at about 161,000, they're at 150,000. So it's a great program, and it's to help support the development of that area. And we have a potential business that would like to locate out there, so they're gonna need water service relatively soon. So we're looking for an approval on that, so they can get started. And discussions from Del Colrick this morning is they're looking at around a mid-March start. And they have to be complete by June.
Okay, I need a motion that we approve or deny agreement between the City of Brush and Premier Earthworks and Infrastructure Incorporated for the English Water Line Project.
I move that we approve the agreement between the City of Brush and Premier Earthworks and Infrastructure Incorporated for the English Water Line Project.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second, any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
We'll move into finance, and we'll ask Counselor Sherman to give us a approval for the disbursements.
I move that we approve disbursements and payroll for February 12th through the 26th, 2018, totaling $207,669.53.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I thought that was your motion.
I move we approve.
Oh, sorry.
Second?
We have a second?
Anderson did.
Okay, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Baker?
Yes.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, staff reports. Joanne?
I have one quick item this evening. You may have noticed in front of you, when you got here this evening, you had an independent accountant's report from Laura Zalbo and Associates. In 2017, we were selected by FPPA to have an independent audit done, and at that time I had came to council and let you be aware that we were gonna have to do that independent audit. And it's an audit of our FPPA contributions for the police department. Scott Zalbo from Laura Zalbo and Associates did come on February the 12th and completed that audit, and his findings are the paper that you got in front of you. That's the findings that he had, that he sent to FPPA, and we basically got a clean bill of health.
Very good, thank you, Joanne. Chief Anderson?
I'm scared too. A few things. We've had, over the last 2 weeks, we had 455 calls for service. A couple significant incidents. Everybody knew we had the school threat situation. Luckily, it was determined to be unfounded. However, we kept officers in all the schools, worked with the school district, just make sure that everybody felt comfortable in going to school and didn't have that fear in the back of their head. We had an agency assist for a shooting and barricade incident. They needed our rescue truck, and so we took it down and almost made it there, and the guy gave up, so that was good. And then unfortunately, we had a fire over in 300 block of Cameron. We had a loss of life during that fire. I will say that at some point in time, we'll probably be doing a formal recognition, but Dusty Quick went into the house, underneath the fire or smoke and saw somebody laying in there and was able to pull him out. He got a few injuries, some smoke inhalation, but overall he's doing okay and very proud of what he did. So.
If I could, I'd just like to go on record of thanking the police department and the sheriff's department for their rapid response and coordination with us and with the school, making sure our kids were safe. It was a pleasure to work with them, and they were above and beyond and very responsive. We appreciate it.
As a community, we're very thankful that you're all here, and would you express to Officer Quick, we appreciate his response to the incident. And thank you. Karen,
I don't have anything else this evening.
you're worn out?
I am.
Okay.
You scared Karen?
I'm not scared, I'm just
Lance is not here.
Mr. Pro Tem Mayor, I'd also like to thank Monty and Karen as we've been trying to push through the different phases of our impending groundbreaking and so forth. They've been very communicative and helpful in trying to help me and our owner's rep to make sure we're chasing down the right people, doing the right thing at the right time, and trying to get it done in a timely fashion, and when not, still working with us to, and Mr. Kohler for that matter, to make sure that we can do so in a timely fashion and not have any unnecessary delays. And it's been very, very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Andrea,
Okay, just a reminder of the city and county meeting in Wiggins, and those that have RSVP'd are Marlene, Monty, Karen, and Janine. And I still haven't heard where it's going to be, so I'm gonna have to get a quick email out to you once they let me know. And then March 10th, the Chamber Ag Appreciation, we have Sherman, Torres, Scalisi, and Baker that have committed to going, and that's it.
okay, thank you. Administrative report, Monty?
Okay, a few items. First one is the GOCO Recreation Master Plan. That's a partnership between the City of Brush, Brush School District, and the JNN Foundation. They all contributed some funds, some matching funds towards a GOCO grant. And we have preliminary word that it looks like we're like in the top 3, so we should get the funding for that. I believe the GOCO amount's roughly $50,000, if I remember right. So it's good to get those funds through GOCO. The solar project, we're working with a company that had an interest in 2 City of Brush's properties for a small solar community garden. And fortunately, the 2 that they looked at, I was contacted this last week, and they said that financially they're not going to be feasible sites because of one, the electrical lines in the area may not be the right capacity for them to bring in more electricity. So we'll give it one more shot and see if we can get them in there. The other thing is Janine had asked me to check in with CWCB and the engineers that are working on the Beaver Creek study. And they indicated that they're looking at 4 different alternatives. They're completing the 3rd alternative, and they're gonna start working on the 4th alternative. And the one thing that I asked of them is that when they get closer to have a meeting with us, we can understand those alternatives and what the costs are. And then also, we'll ask them to come and do a presentation to council so everyone gets the same information from them at the same time. Also with CWCB, they did apply for some aerial surveying, it's called a LiDAR study. And last I heard is that it was looking good that they'd have the funding to do this watershed for us. So that should help out. The other thing I was gonna mention about the floodplain and people needing to do the engineering, Karen has started the process to look at getting some additional survey markers put around town to get good elevations. Cause that could be one of the things that rises or increases the cost, is if you don't have those dedicated survey markers close by, the survey costs, it costs more to get to that from one point to another. So if we put in some more of those in the future, that could help with that cost. And that's that. And the other thing I was gonna mention is, We are looking at in April being part of a county-wide emergency response with the Colorado Army National Guard, and Chief is part of the group. They're planning it. We don't know exactly what Brush's role is going to be, but most of it's going to be probably in Fort Morgan. But there's probably good likelihood we'll have some National Guardsmen around town doing some type of mission or something like that related to an emergency. It's another one of our steps in preparing ourselves for the future whenever we do have an emergency. So our response and our practice helps out in those. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Martine. Mayor and council reports. Anybody have a report to give? Hearing none,
Wait, let me find my notes.
you gotta speak fast, I'm moving on.
It's been a while since the chamber's dinner, but I went to the chamber dinner, and I heard, and I had his card right here, and now I've lost it. Tim Stroh, thank you, from Historical Preservation, is that correct? Right, so I think almost everyone here was there, so I don't have to repeat what he said. But it might be a good time, I talked to him afterwards, I introduced myself and asked him if he was hinting around about Central School, and we talked about that just a little bit. And I said that, I would have an interest in whatever his thoughts are. So I contacted Monty the next day, and I would really like for us to hear from him. Monty had on the agenda tonight for Melody to come in, but apparently she's not able to come in. But I would still like to keep moving forward and let everybody know what is going on with the Central School, so that at some point maybe we can make a determination whether we want to take it on as a dilapidated building, or whether there's gonna ever be a rescue, in terms of renovating.
Okay.
So we're still gonna look forward to Melody.
Yeah, and she's in contact with Mr. Stroh, so we can probably work through that at that time. Okay, next area is a CML conference. We've had some issues with the fact that they're doing some renovation up there, and the hotel rooms have been minimized by the renovation. So, question to council, and again, I hate to, I don't think we can delay, because the longer we delay, the fewer rooms are available elsewhere. So this group needs to kind of give us some direction here. What do you feel, and I guess I'll ask you this question, what is the standard that we've paid before for a room? Because the question is, how much are we willing to spend for the rooms?
I think it's been right around 180 to 200, hasn't it, Joanne?
I think it's probably even as high as 250.
Yeah.
It just varies from year to year
There's
and where they have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then sometimes we get in the same situation, even as soon as they start announcing the rooms are available.
They're sold
They're
out.
sold out so fast, and so we have to sometimes get other lodging. So it's varied a little bit, but this year, the first snapshot of the cost was way higher than what we were anticipating. But I think there might be some new news about some other rates in the area.
Is this council interested in going to CML? Question one.
Yes?
I'll look that way too. If you're interested in going, could you consider going for part of it instead of all of it? Or looking at what's available and choosing, you wanna go for the whole enchilada? Okay.
Yeah, it's only 3 days,
Well,
3 nights.
yeah,
Yeah, no.
could be very expensive though, that's the kind of the point is.
Well, I think we've already budgeted for training for councils in the last budget, didn't we, Joanne?
We budgeted, yes, but did this put you over budget? Will this additional cost of rooms end up putting your budget over?
So it depends on how many go also.
Yeah.
Right now, we
There's always
have
variables, yeah.
Dana, Dan, Janine, and Rick. So we have 4
That's a good number, though.
that have expressed interest.
Okay,
How much are the rooms per night, Andrea, currently that we've heard
Well,
about?
the newest recommendation from CML is 180, and the other is 149, but I don't know if those have been taken or not. So, I mean, even if you give me $300, don't go over 300, then at least when I'm calling, because some people may have to stay at different places too if there's not enough. So I just need kind of a max dollar amount.
okay, is everybody comfortable with that number, 300?
I think you should go up to whatever point that we don't go over budget. And do the best you can at this point.
But there's other
Is
things
that
that
just
might
for
come
CML?
up
Oh.
too, so
Yes,
be aware
Okay.
of those other
budget is
items.
involved in all of the trainings throughout the year. But we can look the budget over tomorrow and kind of calculate it and see how close you get to that.
Because if
We
you had
can do that
3
for
nights, that'd be 900 plus the 230, that'd be 11, and mileage of 200, so you're looking at about 1,300
Times 4.
for, yeah, times 4.
So you're looking at about $5,200.
And there's 7,000. I mean, I don't know how much has been used, but,
Well, that's for the CML District 1 meetings, and
yeah.
I would think we would probably be okay. If you kept that cap at 300.
At 3,
Okay.
that helps me when I'm
So in
calling.
that same note, is everybody okay if there's some distance involved? Either walking, as long as it's downhill, that's fine.
Both ways.
Vale's got a pretty good
Shuttle,
circulator
yeah.
bus system too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a good shuttle.
So, okay, well, Joanne, Andrea, if you guys
Okay.
will work that out.
We
Okay.
can do that.
Any other questions about the conference or anything? Okay, the last area is orientation day. And I don't know, Monty, what dates are we looking at?
We didn't have any actual dates written down, we're just gonna kind of throw it out there, are there, I know we've tried doing them on Mondays, in the past, I don't know if we ever done a Saturday or not, but is there any other days besides Mondays that might work over the next few weeks?
In the evenings? Or, how long are you looking at for orientation?
I'm gonna
Block of time.
say attention span, no more than 3 hours in a block is my guess. I mean, that would be the longest.
So we're probably looking at evenings.
I'm open, I don't care.
Seems like when I did that original poll, everybody preferred Monday nights. I mean, when people, some could do others, but,
I'm comfortable with Monday as well.
so we'd have March 5th or March 19th would be off Mondays in March.
Okay. Anybody have a preference over the 5th or the 19th?
I will, if I'm a presenter and I won't be available the 5th,
The 19th work for you?
the 19th should work, yes. That's the third Monday, right?
Yes,
Everybody else? Okay, 19th.
okay, perfect.
Andrea, would you send out an email?
That's the last order of business. I guess we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming.